Hi, friends. Just getting set up here. I'm hoping things go a little bit smoother today. If you are on live, say hi. I'm going to have the comments up here on my phone. So if I'm looking over to the side, it's because I'm checking the phone for the comments. And then I'm on Zoom on my computer and I've got some kind of slides just to keep me a little bit on track. So I'm going to get started that way. Hi, Margot. How are you doing this evening? Let's see if anyone pops on the Zoom, but if not, we've got the Facebook too. So, oh, that sounds nice. Nice way to wind down. Okay, so let's start. Let's just shake off the day a little bit. I worked days today. This is my fourth day in a row, and then I worked 2 nights. So I had overtime on the weekend. So I definitely could use just a couple deep breaths and just to kind of ground a little bit. And it's nice to do after, especially if you've got a work day or you've been out around people or whatever's going on. Maybe you've just got stuff going on. It's nice to take that mindful moment and just kind of take a breath and see where you're at. So I invite you to do that now with me. I'm just going to take maybe 3 or 4 deep breaths and just kind of maybe close my eyes, do a little bit of movement, shake it out a little bit. So do whatever kind of comes to you. And then we're gonna dive right into resiliency. So just take a couple moments now and just kind of sink in. We're just gonna get comfortable for the evening and learn some stuff together. All right. Whatever happened during the day, you're just gonna kind of blow it out, let it go, let it be what it is. No judgment. Just come back to the moment. Hope that feels good. If there's ever any questions along the way, pop them into the chat. I'll take a look. I'll keep looking over. And if you're watching the replay, you can certainly still comment during the replay, and then I'll check comments after. So we are going to talk about resiliency today. Now, question for you. What is resilience? What is resilience or resiliency to you? Let's take a moment and think about that. You can put anything in the chat if you want to. I have this book that I finished reading a few days ago. It's called Calm Within the Storm. It is by Dr. Robin Hanley Defoe. She is Canadian. I think she grew up around Peterborough, I want to say, if I remember correctly. Anyway, she's been a keynote speaker for a couple of the Norwex conferences. Incredible speaker. And she researches resiliency and stuff. So she's written this incredible book. I am going to reference a few passages just because she says it so incredibly that I would not be able to say it the same way and just kind of have the same impact. So I'm going to reference that a little bit. So according to the Oxford Dictionary, as if you've done some of my trainings, I do like to define things and then just kind of go into it a little bit. So according to the Oxford Dictionary, resilience is the capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties, or toughness. It comes from the Latin word resiliens, which means to rebound or recoil. So it's basically like how quickly can you overcome and recover from obstacles and just life, the tough times in life, the difficult times. Now, I do want to speak before we kind of dive in. I want to speak a little bit about some of my own thoughts, but also like validated through the book. So I want to talk a little bit about society. So when you think about babies, when they're born and just super little, and even like toddlers, we are not born doubting ourselves. Hands up if you agree. This happens later on in life. So from the time we're birth to about 7, 8 years old, we're basically a sponge. I think it's the prefrontal cortex has not fully developed yet. So that's that kind of like reasoning and stuff like that. So we really are taking in everything around us. And those sometimes become our beliefs, our truths, and it gets stored in our subconscious. And our subconscious is what drives our conscious actions. So, I mean, that's a whole other thing to dive in. There's all kinds of stuff to go. That's many other topics too. So we're not going to dive into that tonight. But I just want you to be aware that, and just have the context as we start out, that we don't doubt ourselves from the beginning. We do what we need to get what we need. And we don't doubt our worthiness to get those things. We don't doubt or question if we're worthy to be fed or to have our bum changed, right? So it's later on when we start to be conditioned by society that we start to question those things. Society and social comparison is what makes life hard for us. It creates gaps and disconnects between who we are, who we think we are, and who we are capable of becoming. Now there's a passage, or just not really a passage, but a quote, a little paragraph. Let me find it here. Society has proclaimed that our worth is something that has to be earned, won, or proven. We're supposed to be extraordinary in absolutely every area, in our jobs, our family life, our extracurriculars, and even our personal wellness. This fast-paced rat race of seeking other people's approval is hurting our humanity. It's harder than ever to grasp that deep sense of worth. Evidence of this is that we can never seem to have enough of what we don't need. Despite all the material things, approval, accolades, we feel like something is missing. And because we actually don't need it all, we will never have enough of it because it is the wrong remedy. So we're seeking things outside of ourselves, and it will never fully satisfy us because it's not what we need, it's what we want. The antidote is to reconnect with our self-worth. And to do this, we can start by revisiting the notion of self-esteem. There is a connection between self-esteem and resiliency. We need to believe we deserve to feel well and be okay. So self-worth versus self-esteem. Self-worth is truly us at our innermost core and how we feel about ourselves. If we believe ourselves to be worthy, the self-love, all of that inside job, right, that we talk about. And self-esteem is based around validation of external factors. So if we feel validated by people or things, we can have high self-esteem. But that hinders on things outside of ourselves. And I think that's important to know and be aware of, and it can change your life. Now, there's another little piece that I wanted to read. Because of life experiences, deep hurts and emotional setbacks, Many of us lose touch with the importance of listening to our instincts, practicing self-preservation, and knowing we are enough. So because we spend so much time and effort focusing on the things that build our self-esteem, the things outside of us, we lose touch with who we are inside. We are hurting from our pasts. Again, that social conditioning, maybe we were bullied, and we're running a race with no finish line. And that's what happens when we look for things outside of ourselves, because it's not the answer. We are exhausted by the obligatory, and we're holding on to practices that do not serve us. So all of the things that we do as a human race to self-soothe that aren't really all the vices, right? It could be alcohol, shopping, gambling, all of those things that we're doing to feed something inside of us, but it's outside of us and we're always reaching for it. We need to reach inside. That's where the answers are. We are working ourselves to death instead of working ourselves into more life. It does not have to be this way. And this, this kind of goes along the lines of like burnout, right? We're always like chasing the carrots and looking for those things outside of ourselves. And it dysregulates our nervous system, which is our capacity to feel safe doing things. And it just disrupts our whole existence, really. It does not have to be this way. Fostering a sense of enough is possible for all of us. What you've done up to this point only equips you even more to know what you want and do not want in life. Rest assured, your future is about your hunger, not your history. I think that's very powerful, because we all have a past, and it doesn't define where we are capable of going. It is it's a place to reflect on where we've been, what we've learned in order to get us where we are. And I just want to validate for you that if you ask yourself if you're resilient, I would encourage you are, because you have survived everything in life that has happened and that you've been through that has brought you to this time and this place. There's nothing you haven't overcome yet. And that's incredible. And it doesn't matter how excruciating it was or not. Some things were little, some things bring us to our knees. Some things make us want an exit strategy. If I'm completely honest, I went through that in January. I'm no stranger to deep, dark places when I'm navigating life and grief and loss and different things, but this was a time like no other. So I just want to say that if you've had these times, I see you and I'm here for you, and it's okay. And you've come through all of it so far. Doesn't mean it wasn't hard. I cried myself to sleep in a ball, and I wanted an easy button. I wanted to be ejected out of this life. It was so painful. Emotional pain is on the inside, and it's hard to describe, right? Because it's not visual. You don't see the scar, but it's there. So those of us who have experienced deep, profound loss, we get it, right? And I hope that we can be there for each other, because this is how we navigate and survive the rest of it, right? Hey, Tori, no worries. So next, I want to talk about 3 elements that impede the quality of life and performance. There's 3 main things that restrict us and hold us back from being ourselves, our best selves, and really navigating life with more grace and ease. It is horrible pain, Margot, and I know we've talked about that. So It's, I feel you. If you felt the deepest, darkest place, maybe there's no light, maybe there's like a pinhole of light and you don't know how you're going to get to it. I've been there. I was just there. I'm still going through some of it, but I see more light and I'm putting my tools to practice. I'm my survival guide and I'm moving towards it every day. And sometimes feels like a step forward and 8 steps back, but you just one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time, one breath at a time. That's sometimes just how it is. So the first thing that holds us back, impedes our quality of life and performance, is stress. And we can look at stress in different ways. So again, we've done a masterclass already on conquering stress. And it was really interesting. This book kind of gave me a bit of a different perspective on it, in that we really give a negative connotation on stress and what that means. And but remember, it's important to remember that stress can enhance our performance. So if we frame it to that idea and just remember that we can use it to our advantage in terms of how we perform at things, how we accomplish things. Where the problem is when it becomes distress or like chronic acute stress, right? So we don't want to be living in fight or flight, whether it's acute or that low grade chronic stress. That's when our body starts breaking down. Our body isn't meant to be pumping cortisol and adrenaline through our veins all the time. So that's when we end up having immune system breakdown. We get sick. We're vulnerable to other illnesses, even autoimmune diseases, etc. But stress itself is not a negative thing. We just have to be able to see it in our body and realize, is this helping or hindering my performance right now? Number 2 is fear. Fear holds us back so much, right? And this goes back to that childhood stuff when we're little, right? And we're absorbing everything around us, our parents or whoever's raising us, and those relationships, and whoever we're most influenced by, whoever's around. We are taking on their beliefs, we're taking on their thoughts, they're becoming our beliefs, and we're not even aware of it. And most people, even nowadays, unless you do this work and you dive in and actually like stop, like when things start coming up, and I would like to do a masterclass on triggers, but when we start to actually recognize triggers, and again, this is going to be another topic, but I'll say something quick, and take that mindful, and I talk about mindfulness all the time because I really think it's a foundation, it's a base of like so much of what makes our life better and will enrich your life. When we take those moments and look at where that trigger is coming from and whose voice it is, if it's even our own voice or if it's like, again, that conditioning, this is when we can start to rewrite those patterns. We can unlearn them and create new patterns of belief and thought. Our brains are very, I mean, they're incredible. And neuroplasticity means that our brains are malleable. So we can unlearn things and we can create new neural pathways. I'm going a bit on a side tangent, but I just want to be clear with that. So just because we have experienced and been impacted by things in our childhood, whether it's childhood experiences, our environment, culture, parents, these are things that hold us back. And when we can have the awareness and the mindfulness around it to discover and be curious about it. Again, if you haven't watched the mindfulness I guess I did it at the beginning of the month. It was supposed to be for February, but I had to take care of Granny. That is, that's when we get curious about things. And then we can, instead of like shaming ourselves or feeling bad about a certain behavior, we can get curious about it and explore it a little bit and heal it. Really, that's really the main word, because we're not judging it and we can just say, oh, I understand where that came from. And it's not even, it came into our subconscious and we've been carrying it around. We get to decide whether we want to keep carrying it around or not. And then we can choose a different belief or a different thought. And the third one is stigma. Now this one I have a little bit extra written here, and there's some stuff I want to there's a paragraph I want to read about, because this is another thing. And I found this part of the book really interesting because I hadn't really thought a lot about stigma and really how it affects how we live our lives and how much it holds us back. So I'm going to go to that page and read that to kind of get us started off. So stigma, by definition, is a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person. So again, it's kind of those outside factors. It's not necessarily like who we are, but it's like our socioeconomic class. It's our race. It's our gender. It's all the things we can't change. Or like maybe we were born into it. It's not something that we had control over or maybe can control. The word stigma comes from the Greek words referring to marking or tattooing. It was meant to signify an outward mark of criminals, slaves, or traitors so that others could see that person carrying the mark, could see that the person carrying the mark was blemished or morally polluted. There's a long history across the globe of human branding as means of control and punishment. Yeah, and it's all fear-based, right? Some were marked as belonging to a particular group, but more often, branding people was associated with someone who did not follow the rules. People were marked so everyone could see their shortcoming. And with stigma comes shame. The other thing about stigma is it harms people's potential and prevents them from seeking help. So a very easy reference is mental health, right? If someone's struggling mentally, don't get me wrong, there's a lot more awareness than there was even 10 years ago with mental health and awareness around that and what it looks like and just the whole spectrum and everything. But there's still so much stigma around being open about it. People can fear losing their job or being labeled a certain way. They can feel like if people know that I'm struggling with depression or anxiety, that I'm weak. And I would say the very opposite. You're a warrior if you're dealing with that and navigating that on top of your daily life. So shame. Stigma is external. Shame is let me back up a sec. The byproduct of stigma is shame. That's how it comes out. Stigma is external. It's what people are saying and putting on you based on really things that I think most of us agree or would not be fair. Shame is internal. Shame is when we start to believe that we are not worthy because we're female or whatever it is, because we have anxiety. Shame is a fear of disconnection. It's believing we're flawed and unworthy of love, belonging, and connection. So if you're thinking about this, you can see how much this can impact a person, right? And really hold them back from believing in themselves. And then that directly translates to when you go through hard times. If you have low self-worth because you feel shame because of stigma, you're going to have a hard time believing that you can get through things because you lack the self-worth, right? So the key to disarming shame is through authenticity. And authenticity is showing up in the most authentic, organic way. It is showing up as who we are at the core. And Tori, if you're still in here, Tori's known me a long time. And she'll be the first to say, I've always kind of um, walked to the beat of my own drum. So if you want to talk about authenticity and being the weird kid, I can tell you all kinds of stories. So I'm an advocate for it because the things, and I did a post recently, the things that I feel I'm most judged about or maybe even shamed about, and it used to really hold me back until I started doing this work, are actually the things that I love the most about myself because it's what makes me unique. These things are the reasons why people feel comfortable approaching me about things, right? Being that person that people are like, I just feel drawn and I just want to tell you this and they confide in me. It's because I show up as who I am and people feel comfortable with that. So I'm not trying to like toot my own horn by any means, but I think it's important that we can claim those things. Because again, society tells us not to. It tells us to be small and don't be so proud. And, like, fuck it. I don't subscribe to it. I never have. I have been, I have been, my light has been dimmed. But as I get older, I think the older we get, the less we care, right? Um, but I can see how those things that I was bullied for are the things that make me who I am and make me, are the reason why now that I show those parts of me, that's what brings people in and makes them want to like tell me their story and have a real human connection. And I really want to encourage people to do that because you'll live so much bigger. Like I said, after my friend Nicole died, I promised her I would live twice as big for the two of us. And it's been a journey. A young lady with the wisdom of a 75-year-old. I do feel that way sometimes. And honestly, sometimes I don't even know how I know the things that I know. I just do. I just feel it and I share it because if we have to go through this experience, this human life alone, like why are we all on this planet then? If the society makes us feel alone and expects us to do it quiet, I don't see a point. So why is resilience so important? Resiliency, I'll use them interchangeably. Simply, it helps us navigate difficult times so we can come out at the other end stronger, right? Because as soon as we go through something hard and we come out the other end, we learn the lessons, we gain the wisdom, we can look back, we don't forget the pain, right? It becomes further away. But when we really like sit with it, I can still bring back pain from, say, the day we put my cat down, what that was like. And that was 2004, 19 years ago almost, 18 and a half. She died in September. But it's the lessons that we learn that we carry forward. So then when the next thing happens, we can say, I survived that thing. I can do this. And there's going to be times where we lose sight of what we're capable of, and that's okay. I am not going to ever say that, be so resilient you never get off track. It's going to happen. I'm on that track. I can speak for it. But I think it's also important to look back a little and say, I came through that when we need a little bit of a kick in our own butt, right? So the last big thing we're going to talk about is how do we foster more resilience? Now, in this book, there's 5 pillars of resiliency, and we're going to go over them. So number 1 is belonging. And there's a difference between, I'm going to say belonging and fitting in. Just checking. Belonging is the inside part. It's showing up as who we are. It's finding our tribe. It's finding our people that love and accept us for exactly who we are. Fitting in is conforming so that you can be accepted by a group. That's the difference. Belonging is from the inside. You're being accepted and you're finding the people who get you and love you, and you don't feel like you have to be anyone other than who you are. And then fitting in is altering who you are depending on who you're with so that you can feel accepted. So when you have a strong sense of self, it makes it easier to draw inner strength when we need it the most. Does that make sense? Because we know ourselves at the core. And it is not uncommon that when we go through difficult things, we can lose that along the way. But the more we practice the things that keep the strength of our connection to who we are on the inside, the easier it is to draw it out. The next one is perspective. So perspective is alignment between attitudes or mindset and your emotion. So it's how we're looking at things, right? Our attitude towards it and our mindset and how we're reacting to it or feeling about it. Now I had put in brackets a growth versus fixed mindset. So a growth mindset, just to kind of summarize, a growth mindset is where there's curiosity around whatever it is that you're going through so that you can grow and learn. Whereas a fixed mindset is you've made up your mind and there's no room for growth. So if you have a growth mindset, you have the ability to find greater perspective in what's happening. If you have a fixed mindset, it's going to be really hard to get through what you're going through because you have expectations maybe around it and you're not willing to grow with it. It is sharpened by loss and pain. Perspective is, of course. And it is formed by our value system. So again, the deeper we know ourselves, the more connected we are to our values, and that helps us to have greater perspective on things. And like it said, sharpened by loss and pain, it forces us to take a look at those things, right? Otherwise, how do we survive it? So a couple different practices that you can do to enhance and practice perspective is mindfulness. Again, I feel like everything comes down to mindfulness and gratitude. These two practices help maintain clear perspectives. So again, mindfulness really at its core is being in the present moment and observing things as they are. Release the judgment, release the shame, and get curious. That's where that growth mindset is. That's where you can develop perspective. And gratitude is kind of a byproduct of mindfulness, right? You're seeing more of the things or you're practicing appreciating the small things. And that's when we see more perspective. When we can be grateful for the smallest things in life, we can gain the most perspective through anything. The third one is acceptance. So again, I guess not again. Again, if you watched the other trainings, living an examined life with mindfulness, accepting things the way that they are in the moment. This takes time, space, and intention. It is a very conscious practice. Acceptance is not always easy, especially when it hurts us, right? It's hard to accept things. We lose a loved one. So difficult. I still haven't accepted that my dad's gone. I don't really feel I'm particularly great at life without him right now. And that's okay. but I'm doing the things to keep one foot in front of the other. Sometimes I need to lay down and have a nap, but I'm starting to accept things a little bit more. This is my life now. Can't change it. I can't bring them back. So one thing you can do, and I didn't say in the post before, I kind of forgot to do a couple lead up posts, but I thought, well, whoever shows up, they'll show up and people will watch the replay. So I do sometimes say, like, bring water, bring a journal. What I've been doing lately is I'll just listen to a training and like just be fully present and absorbing what the person's saying. And then I'll go back and watch the replay and that's when I take notes. So then I'm like, I'm listening in a different way. But actually journaling is very helpful for acceptance. So if you want to write some tools, again, with perspective, mindfulness, gratitude practice, with acceptance, journaling can help kind of free your brain of the worry and just the weight of what's on your mind. It frees you of the memories and experiences, and it's a guide in processing and releasing trauma and difficult experiences. So if you can put some of those dark, heavy, scary, whatever thoughts on paper, it's almost like it gives your brain like a sigh of relief. It doesn't have to carry it so much. And there's times that I'll journal and like I kind of don't really know what I journaled because I'm just like fully invested in it. I'm just writing all the things. And one thing I've done before, actually, Tori and I had a girls' night a long time ago, and I did this when I didn't get closure after a relationship ended. There was no closure. I had to create my own. So I wrote a letter and I said all the things that I wish I could have said, and I burned it. I mean, don't do it inside. Don't start a fire. But I went out on the back step and I burned it. So they're kind of like there's imagery, there's symbolism there, but the stuff, I swear, it works. Journal it out. And if you don't want to, sometimes it's nice to go back and see where you came from and the journey you've been through. Sometimes you just need to get it out of your brain because it's not serving you. So if that's the case, journal it out, burn it if you want. Dispose of it, bury it, whatever you got to do to release it, whatever that symbolism means for you. Now, number 4 is hope. This is a big one, right? For resiliency, we have to have hope. If we have hope, if we don't have hope, we don't have anything. This is the heart of resiliency. It's believing and living hope-filled. This hope is that motivational force that allows us to move towards our goals. So when we're in a good place in life, hope moves us towards the greater things. And when the times are tough, hope gets us out of the hole. There's also another reference I'm going to read regarding transformational thinking and how our thinking is directly related to our capacity for hope. So I'm gonna open that up right now. 165. All right, so we have here how we can finally address all these mental pushes and pulls is through the practice of transformational thinking. Transformational thinking is overcoming the limits that we have imposed on ourselves. And if we go back, these are a lot of times based on that subconscious programming from when we're little. It really is they're not even necessarily our own beliefs. We just inherited them. So when we can realize that, we can give ourselves more love and grace to unlearn those patterns, right? And it's just, it's about getting out of our own way. We put these limits on ourselves. And I encourage you to question yourself sometimes. Like if you're in a loop and you're super stressed out about stuff and you're like, I can't go to bed until this, and this is done. Are you in your own way? Do those things have to be done before you go to bed? What's more important? Getting the dishes tucked away and clothes folded and all those things, or like the extra hour of sleep? What's going to actually make you perform better tomorrow? And believe me, I'm not saying this as someone who didn't experience that. I was that person that's like, I got in my own way all the time. Sometimes I still do, but I have to have that mindful moment of, do I have to do this right now? Is it gonna matter tomorrow or can it wait till tomorrow? Sometimes it's peace of mind, and sometimes that's part of the kind of like self-care practice. It's like you really just want the kitchen to look tidy before you go to bed. So sometimes you make it happen, but sometimes maybe you're so mentally and physically exhausted, you just need to go to bed. I'll be there in the morning. You could do it then. But it's having those practices and really kind of testing those boundaries. What would it feel like if I just didn't do it this time and I got to it tomorrow when I've had a good night's sleep and I feel refreshed and I have the energy to do it, right? 100% been that person. It's a conscious practice. But I can tell you, I have released so much frustration of my own, like from myself, from not getting in my way as much. So it's creating a consciousness that will set us on a path of achieving the results to which we aspire. It's connecting with the core of who we are and knowing our value. It's rebuking the inner speech that does not serve us. It's no longer asking our emotions permission to be who we want to be. Now, that example was like very kind of surface level. So this is going obviously a lot deeper. But again, it's just different patterns and being mindful and aware of our inner voice. Is it serving us? Is what we're saying? Are we driving our own anxiety sometimes? Because if we're getting ourselves worked up about stuff, for me, that's a, hey, need to take a moment, look at the greater perspective of this, right? And we all get caught up in it. I do all the time. It's been the last, year, but I have to say this practice has helped ease some of that. And the more we do it, the better we get at it, the more it becomes a lifestyle, right? We're never going to be perfect at it. We're humans. We're not meant to be. And then the last one is humor. Humor is a big driver in how resilient we are. It loosens the grip that life has on us. Laughter is the body's natural painkiller. Now, one quote that I live by, and I think it's the bio or whatever on my private Instagram page, and I put it years ago, is if you don't laugh, you cry. My Aunt Shirley used to say that to me all the time, ever since the last, I'd say 13 years. We just lost her in September, and that's a whole other story. But yeah, that's like one of my mottos. It really has, I've embodied it, and it has gotten me through some very, very tough times, and it continues to, because there's times in life where we cannot even imagine that have you ever had those moments where you're just like, how is this my life? I can't tell you how many times I've said that in the last year, 10 months or 11 months. And it's like, how is this real life? Right? And it's so surreal. And sometimes it's so devastating, you have to cry because that's how it is. And I would never try to defer you from releasing the emotions that come up in the way that they come up. I'm not saying let's laugh instead of cry every time. Sometimes we just need a good cry. I'll make a date sometimes with myself. When I start to feel that heaviness build up, I know it because I start feeling irritable and just not myself. And I'll plan a night where I know there's like 3 different movies that absolutely will open up the floodgates. You can be sure I'm going to watch one of them. I'm just going to let it out. I'm going to ugly cry for 2 hours. I'm going to have a headache after. My eyes are going to be puffy. I'm going to wake up the next morning feel like hungover, but there's such a release. And you know what? Crying actually activates the polyvagal nerve, which runs all through like down our spine and around our organs and stuff like that. And that's part of our our nervous system. And when we have a good cry, it releases endorphins. I can't remember it might be oxytocin, but it releases feel good endorphins. And that's why we feel relief after we cry. You can hands up if you've had like a really good cry. And there's a weight off and there's relief. It's just like you can just sigh and you feel a little bit lighter. Crying will release some of those hormones that actually make us feel better. And the with I think the polyvagal nerve, it helps to kind of stimulate that parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest state. So again, relaxing. Now, there is another quote that I wanted to read quick. Let me find it. So this is Mark Twain. Mark Twain said, "Humor is the great thing, the saving thing. The minute it crops up, all our irritations and resentments slip away and the sunny spirit takes their place." So when we can find humor in as much as possible, that's when we get those moments of light in the darkness, right? And sometimes laughing at how ridiculous something is, there's so much relief in that. I can tell you, I've done it time and time again. And it's just like, you kind of just throw your hands up because it's like, how is this happening? Like, what is happening? And you just surrender to it in the moment and you laugh and maybe you cry after, but you have that moment of laughter. And that, again, that tries to add a little bit of perspective. Sometimes there just is none. We just don't always have to understand life and why things are happening the way they are. But if we can find we can find those moments amongst the heaviness, it helps to kind of keep it a little bit lighter. Are there any questions? See Margot with her hand up. So I'm going to kind of start wrapping up. If you have any questions, let me know. I wanted to share some of my own thoughts on this a little bit to kind of wrap up. And I was trying to get them put together nicely. I might babble through it, so don't mind. But this is something I like to teach based on a lot of my own experiences, because I think lived experiences has so much validity and stuff, especially if we've gone to those deep, dark places and we've had those, awakenings through things and we've learned the lessons and integrated it, embodied it into our life, and we use it as our survival guide. I think there's so much value in that, more than just like reading a self-help book. Now, like I said, I read this book and this helped solidify some of the ideas that I have. It gives me, again, a wider perspective on this topic so that I can teach about it a little bit wider than like my own lived experience, but it also kind of helps to tie it all in. So I think there's power in both if we're using the right resources. But I did want to kind of, and like, let me know what you think, whether this resonates or if you have questions about it. I wanted to talk about my theory on resiliency and our nervous system. So the more that I learn about the nervous system and kind of just like doing the work of peeling back those onion layers of our programming and helping heal some of it. Now, two other topics I want to talk about and do masterclasses on: shadow work and inner child. Now, I don't have inner child in my Create Your Calm program. It's going to be part of soul medicine. Soul medicine is going to be a really deep dive. I've decided I'm going to launch it in the fall. I want to do some more time kind of integrating some of the stuff and developing it. So I was going to start in April. I'm going to wait. I've kind of had some quiet time to decide is this the right time? Or do I need a bit more time to kind of see things a little bit clearer, especially because of what I've just been navigating the last few months. And I am starting to kind of come out the other side a little bit, but I'm learning my own lessons as I walk people through stuff I have learned. So it's not like I know there's kind of a pressure with society of like you got to have your shit together all the time when you're teaching people stuff, and in a sense, but I've already been through so much. I can still teach on what I already know, and the things that I'm actively using to bring me through this time that I'm in right now. And then once I get through this time or just further out from it, I'll even have more wisdom to teach on. So I do have a program I'm going to launch this spring as a self-study. So it's not going to be live trainings. I won't be in there in the container, but it will be pre-recorded modules. I'm basically making my Create Your Calm that was going to be live because I'm coming into a busy season with work. Overtime has already started, as I stated. So, but I want people who have been enjoying these free master classes and what I'm talking about and stuff. If you want to do a bit of a deeper dive, this is a great way to start. It's going to be $111. Some of you have already taken it, right? We did a round last September. It was 5 weeks. So there's going to be 5 modules again. It's basically me turning it into a recorded. All the modules are recorded. They'll be ready for you. Self-paced. You can do it at your own pace. You can purchase it whenever you want to. After it's finished, of course. I do need to do some more recordings, and it's going to be ready. I'm going to say next month. I'm going to put the pressure and accountability on myself to have it done next month. So anyone who wants to do a little bit of a deeper dive, let me know. I can put you on a wait list. Just send me a message, and then when it's ready, I can send you a message with the link and stuff. But really, what I've been learning through doing deeper dives into some of these subjects I know about because I've lived through it is like the nervous system and how I call it like the nervous system capacity. It's really how much our body can handle of what is unknown before it has a reaction, right? And in my experience, I found a practice that I feel challenges my nervous system. It challenges my mind and my body. And our nervous system is made up of both, right? There's signals going back and forth. It's telling us, you know, there's a threat, whether it's perceived or real, increase the heart rate, increase the blood pressure, mental clarity so you can get out, fight or flight. So having a practice, and this is where I need to go a little bit slower so I can kind of bring my thoughts all in, because I get really excited about this because it's kind of newer to me. I've been developing it over the last couple of years, but it's been a life changer for me. And that's the Wim Hof method, if you've seen my stories and heard me talk about it. But having a practice that is conscious, you know that you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation. Doesn't have to be as extreme as the Wim Hof, which I'll go into in just a moment. But this is something, and it could be as simple, like I want you to do a little bit of or I encourage you to do a little bit of a reflection after this. Make a list. I encourage you to make a list. And if you share it, that's bonus. Or share it with me privately if you feel called to, or share it in the comments. But I want to encourage you to make a list of things that scare you, but they're not a real threat. And something you would feel uncomfortable doing. So a couple examples that are very known in society is going for dinner by yourself, or going to a movie by yourself, or like it could be like a solo adventure. It could be a road trip day. It could be actually like going away by yourself for the weekend. It could be taking a trip down south or somewhere. Like, it doesn't have to be anything super wild and long term, but it's when we go into those exploring outside of our comfort zone, not only does it build our confidence because we can say, oh my gosh, I just went and had dinner by myself. I was always afraid to do that. And now I did it. Hey, it's not so bad. And maybe you're going to want to start doing it more regularly, once a month, once every few months. And that's your me time. This is how we build those like toolboxes of practices, and we figure out more about ourselves. If you want to talk about connecting with your self-worth, building self-worth, the more we discover ourselves, what we like, what we don't like, challenging ourselves to do things that are uncomfortable, so that when we overcome it, we feel confidence. We start to build that confidence, that self-love, and resiliency. That's a byproduct of it, right? Does that all make sense? It's the same as last fall's session, Marco. Create your calm. It's the same as the 5-week mindfulness meditation. I'm just recording it so then people, so basically in the summer, I won't be able to be as active with creating programs and running them live because it's going to be so crazy with work. So I wanted to create something that people can pick up whenever they want and go through by themselves and still be learning if they want to while things are busy. And then in the fall, that's when I'll have like the big program, the deeper dive. So you could use this as an introduction into what we're going to go into in the fall. Where was I? Oh yeah. So like building resiliency, self-worth. These are things that you can do to increase your self-worth, your confidence. So I encourage you to think of maybe one of those things you've like wanted to try, but you're afraid to. You're a little bit nervous to. And then ask yourself, is it because of what someone might think? Or why are you afraid to? Get a little curious about that. So to give you, there's a quote by Wendy DeRosa. Healing requires you to feel your emotions, recognize your ego carries a story, and your soul has the capacity to prevail through it all. So the healing emotion, or the feeling your emotions part, is just like have the experience. Don't deny yourself of it. Like I said, if I feel like I have to have a good cry, I'm going to cry. Recognize your ego carries a story. That's that stuff that we've inherited through the programming, our subconscious programming. And your soul has the capacity to prevail through it all. We have to get to know our soul, right? We have to know ourselves at our deepest core, so that we know that no matter what happens, we can lead ourselves through it, and we don't have to rely on outside sources. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think we have to be able to also draw on some resources to help us through it, but we have to know that we're worthy of it, right? So counseling, any type of therapy, and those types of things, but we have to feel that we're worthy of it in order to reach for those resources and those practices. I call it my soul tool belt. So my Wim Hof, my meditation, breath work, whatever it may be. So what I've also written here, our nervous system dictates our boundaries and abilities of comfortability, right? So as soon as our nervous system gets engaged, that's when we like really shut down and we don't extend beyond what our nervous system will allow us to in terms of like what we're comfortable doing or feel safe doing. So when we can mindfully step outside of our comfort zone with practices, it teaches our body that we're safe. It increases our confidence and expands our capacity to overcome adversity. So for mine, it's Wim Hof method. So to give you a little bit of background, it is a combination of breath work, mindset, and cold exposure. So with the breath work, I usually do 3 rounds. One round consists of 25 to 30 breaths. You're doing a full inhale, exhale, and there's no pause in between. So it's kind of like a controlled hyperventilation. You're not going quite that fast, but you're over oxygenating your body. So you can feel tingling in the extremities. You can feel a little bit lightheaded, a little bit of like euphoria. Your body temperature will decrease. After you do the 25 to 30 breaths, you do a full exhale, get everything out of your lungs, and you lay there comfortably and you retain it for as long as comfortably possible. At the end, you're gonna get like a quick need for inhale. So to give you a little bit of the biology, if you're interested, I could talk about this all day. When we over oxygenate our body, it allows us to go longer without breathing. And this is free divers would do something similar. I don't know their exact technique, but carbon dioxide, when it builds up, that tells our central nervous system to breathe in. So when we've over oxygenated, we've expelled carbon dioxide in our body. So it takes longer to get that trigger from our brain to tell our body to inhale. So the longer that we do this practice and the more often, the longer we can go and retain our breath. So for example, my record was actually on my wedding day. I went 3 minutes and 6 seconds without taking a breath comfortably. Right now, I don't have as regular a practice. I'm getting back into it, but I'm usually between 1 minute and 40 and 2 minutes. I think I went a little bit over this last one, but it's really cool. And then like when I can tell people like you can go 2 minutes without breathing and be comfortable, people are like, what? And I was the same way. I was like, that's crazy. I can't do that. And then I did, and I did it again, and I did it again, and I keep going longer each time. And it's building my confidence because then I can say, hey guys, I went 3 minutes and 6 seconds without breathing and I was comfortable. How cool is that, right? And then after that, your body is prepped. It's over oxygenated, so your circulation is incredible and it's ready to go into the cold water. And that's where the mindset comes in, because who willingly goes into Lake Huron in March or February or whenever it's really, really cold? I went in twice last week or so, and the water temperature was 1.6 degrees Celsius. And there was literally chunks of ice surrounding my body the whole time. And it takes a lot of mindset to willingly go into that water. But I can tell you, when I came out, not only did I feel physically strong and incredible, I felt so confident because it's like, look what I just did. I can't believe I just went into 1.6 degree water and stayed there for, I probably total 2 or a bit more minutes. I go to my hips and then I dip down to my shoulders. And so why I do this, and I consider it like a nervous system capacity building exercise, is because I know with cold water, as soon as I get my core in, because we know that when our extremities get cold, it draws heat out of it into our core. When our core is threatened, that causes a shock response. So as soon as I dip down to my shoulders, I go into a shock response. My breathing increases and my eyes get wide and I go, holy crap, right? But I know from my breathing earlier and just doing breath work and using it to deal with anxiety, especially when I'm having a stressful work day in the summer, I know how to breathe through it. So I go, no, I'm going to tell my body it's safe. And I breathe in, I take a deeper breath and I take longer to exhale. It takes a couple breaths to get into it. But within 10 to 15 seconds, I'm breathing normally. I'm comfortable and my body's at ease among all of the ice. And then I get out, and there's also like physiological benefits. Not only do I have more mental clarity, my body looks pink. And I think I've posted a video in the group, so scroll back if you want to see it, or I'll double check and I can always do another one to show you. But you know, my legs and my chest are pink. That is a sign of great circulation. So I know that like physiologically things are working really well. And another thing I learned, one of the other benefits of the Wim Hof method, and again, you don't have to go into a cold lake. You can do 10 seconds. And I would actually encourage you to try it. And it doesn't have to be ice cold. You do something that's outside of your comfort zone. It doesn't have to be extreme. just a little bit colder than what you're comfortable with, enough to give you that that little bit of an inhale, and then breathe through it. Breathe through the uncomfortability, because that's when you teach your body that it can handle hard things. And when you willingly put yourself into those situations and you have that outcome, I am like convinced that when the external things happen in your life that you can't control, you have the same ability. You're going to breathe through it. You're going to find perspective. That's where that inner resiliency is. So this is a way to like build yourself outside of the things that you can't control. You're doing it in a controlled way. You know that you're safe. You're going to teach your body that it's safe too. And so like I was saying, one of the other benefits that I learned is when you do this method and you do the cold, it releases hormones in your brain, or changes your brain chemistry a bit. It releases, they're called endocannabinoids. They are the feel-good hormones. So like Wim Hof himself says, get high on your own supply. You can feel feelings of euphoric. So it's like you're just feeling on top of the world. You have this burst of energy. I find it especially wonderful after I come off night shift, because I am tired, I'm groggy, I haven't had enough sleep, I'm like flipped over, right? I've stayed up all night and now I've got to be functional and like go to bed. I'll go do the Wim Hof dip and breathing, and it's like, I'm good for the rest of the day. I've got that mental clarity, that fog lifts. I feel energetic. I feel like so confident, so on top of the world. I can do what I need to do for the day. And then like all that fresh air and that breath, like I'm gonna sleep like a baby tonight. So there's so many physiological benefits, but bringing it back to that resiliency is that's my building practice, expansion. And like I said, there's many ways you can do it. So I would encourage you to get quiet and think of like things you've been a little curious about that you kind of maybe want to try, but you're scared to, and ask yourself about it. And maybe try one this week or in the coming weeks. And I would love to hear about it. I love hearing success stories when people are like, I took this practice that you talked about and I tried it and this was the result and I love it. I do it every day. I did a training for network marketing and we talked about clearing our mind and putting our thoughts in the box, right? In like I do like a chest. If I can't quiet my mind, this is what I do. And I had a friend say, I still do it and it works really well. And it's like, I love hearing that, because it's like, these are the things that have helped me and I want them to help more people. So I super, super love hearing, I love hearing when things are going well for you. So to finish off, I have one more quote. This was in the book. No act of bravery should ever be forgotten, and it comes in so many forms. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is make the decision to forgive yourself and let go of stigma and self-destructive narratives. There's absolutely no future in your past. Resiliency is in the present. It is available to you in this very moment. You are okay in this moment, and you will be okay tomorrow too. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you've had a wonderful evening. Thanks for hanging out. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll take a look. And I look forward to planning the next masterclass. Give me a little bit. I'll pick a date for April and a topic. I'll look back on the poll. I did have I might add a couple ideas, see what you guys think, and we could switch it up a little bit. Otherwise, we'll go by what the popular topics have been. I've been going kind of most popular down. So we started with mindfulness. This month was resiliency. I can't remember what's next, but I'll take a look. So anywho, not going to take up any more of your time. Thanks for tuning in. Again, if you've caught the replay, #replay, let me know your thoughts. And yeah, have a wonderful evening, friends. Bye.